Okay, so welcome everyone to the hidden job market. What does that mean and how can you navigate it? As I've said, please do feel free to say hi in the chat and let us know where you're logging in from. Oh, we have Scotland, Wales, Sheffield, where else? Dubai, amazing. Sheffield, Cambridge, fantastic. So some different locations across the UK and also beyond. We have muted you, as I've said, and your video is off, but you can communicate via the chat and also enter questions in the chat. My colleague Snetta will be keeping an eye on that throughout the session today. I want to say a big thank you on behalf of my social enterprise, Rocking Your Teens, as some of you made donations towards it, and those donations will go towards increasing resilience, inspiring and raising aspirations in teenagers. In fact, we have our next conference coming up in March, and your donations will directly go towards supporting that event and making sure it happens and those teens go away inspired. If you want to find out more about Rocking Your Teens, please go to rockingyourteens.com, find out how you can volunteer, sponsor our work, become involved in our programs and conferences. And I know Snetta will kindly put a link to Rocking Your Teens in the chat. So in case you don't know, my name is Jenny Garrett. I'm an award-winning career coach, author, and leadership trainer. My books explore the empowerment of working women and women in leadership roles. And in fact, I'm currently writing a book due to be published in January 2023, all about equity in the workplace. Together with my team, we use our years of experience in coaching and leadership to support women and ethnically diverse leaders to progress at work, as well as supporting majority group leaders in making inclusion happen. Happy New Year to you all. So we're talking about the hidden job market today. According to the Office of National Statistics, job vacancies hit 1.1 million between July and September 2021, the highest level since records began in 2001. And the largest increase in vacancies was in the retail sector and also in motor vehicle repair, apparently. The UK unemployment rate was estimated at 4.5%, compared with a rate of 4% before the pandemic. So there is unemployment, even though there is some growth in areas as well. And the ONS said that the number of employees on payrolls showed another monthly increase, rising to 207,000 to a record 29.2 million in September last year. So as I've said, there are jobs, but maybe you're not finding them or being successful when you apply, or maybe you just don't know where to look. During this session, experienced executive coaches, who you can see here, Jane Saul Patterson, Joseph Ogbana, and also Lisa Leonce, all listed in the Diverse Coaching Directory, a directory which connects corporate organizations with coaches from Black, Asian, and ethnic minority backgrounds. We'll discuss creative approaches to finding and securing roles in these challenging times, how to tap into the hidden job market. And my colleague Snetta will send a link into the chat for our growing directory, which we're finding a huge demand for at the moment. All coaches on the directory have been vetted. They've been referenced, they've demonstrated they have qualifications and a great track record. They're insured and they're committed to really making a difference through coaching. I can vouch for every single one of them. So how will this session go today? Well, Jane, Joseph, and Lisa will briefly introduce themselves. I'll start off by asking them some questions, and then we're going to open it up to you for your questions and reflections. And Snetta will be keeping an eye on the chat throughout. So please do feel free to engage in the chat, talking to each other and sharing with each other, as well as asking us questions, makes it a great two-way conversation. The hashtag for the event is Hidden Job Market for those who love to use social media. We have the Twitter handles for our speakers. Doors will open, Ruvand, Efil_coaching, and myself at Jennifer Garrett, as well as our directory at BAME Exec. But again, Snetta will put that in the chat because that's a lot to remember. Okay, so we often start off with a poll, and today is no different. I want to launch a poll, and I would like to know where you're at. Are you in work and concerned about the stability of your role? Are you out of work and a job seeker? Are you looking for a change in career? Are you looking for a step up in your existing career, or something else? Because there's always something that we haven't thought of. So do complete the poll and let's see what you come up with. And if it's something different, please feel free to write in the chat. Or if you can't see the poll for some reason, please feel free to write in the chat also. Okay. Only 17% of you have participated. It would be great to get a few more of you, even if you just need to write in the chat to let us know. Okay, I'm going to close that poll. Okay, so the results are that the majority of you are looking for a step up in your existing career. And next we have looking to change your career. So that was what we had in terms of that poll. I'm just going to take a quick screen grab of that. I might share that later. Okay, so great to know where we're at. We have an audience of people looking for a step up or looking for a big change. Either one of those. And let's see if there are any other questions. So we've got a work coach looking to learn some more tips and tricks, looking for a change, fixed term contract ending, and looking for something new. Great, brilliant to see where we're at. Okay, thank you so much for participating in that. I would love our coaches now to introduce themselves, and I'd like to start with Jane. Please tell us about you.
Hello, good morning. So I'm Jane Patterson, and I'm an executive and career coach. I guess the focus of my work is supporting leaders and professionals to manage their leadership and work responsibilities, but I also help them to build resilience and to develop sort of fulfillment and authenticity in their careers. I qualified as a performance coach about 20 years ago, and since then I've worked in a vast range of sectors, organisations, and worked with people at all different levels of organisations, from graduates up to CEOs. I'm also a qualified and registered career guidance professional with the Career Development Institute, which means I've also helped many people achieve successful job or career transition. And I'm particularly drawn to working with ethnically diverse leaders, but not exclusively. And I like to help them to succeed in their careers and in their lives as well. I love helping people to find creative job search strategies, which is why I'm really pleased to be here this morning.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jane. And Joseph.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joseph Owuna. I'm a leadership coach, and I work with leaders and aspiring leaders. And when we say leaders and aspiring leaders, that probably means most of the people in this forum. So, and most of the answers we seek, I believe, are in here. Out there, often we look there, and rather than look in at ourselves, and that goes through all my work. I always start with, who are you? And you will hear me coming back to that. So I help people get insights, use my own insights, draw into their inner wisdom in order to make decisions that they can actually execute and be happy with and live with. So that is my passion. I treasure wisdom, and I have worked with people in different sectors and at different levels in organizations and outside organizations to get into the jobs that they want to get, or move career, make decisions, do things that they want to do, or start businesses sometimes. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Joseph. And last but definitely not least, Lisa.
Hello, I'm Lisa Leonce. I'm an executive career and leadership coach. I work with individuals and organisations in developing and supporting their leadership needs and also the progression opportunities. I also provide consultancy and training for organisations in leadership, equity, equality, diversity and inclusion. And I've worked with a wide range of leaders, global, national, regional, local leaders in most sectors: military, law enforcement, banking, facilities management, just to name a few. Along with that and my own lived experience in progressing to director level, also holding trustee and chair positions, establishing my own business and community groups. So that is just some of the richness that I can be and bring to you today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa. As you can see, we have really high caliber coaches here with such a wealth of experience. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. So let's begin. So the first question I want to ask you is, what are the sort of challenges that you've noticed that your coaching clients are experiencing in the last couple of years when it comes to securing roles? We've had a very strange time, the killing of George Floyd, a global pandemic, technology. There's been so much change. So I'm really curious to know what you've noticed. Are there any themes from your clients? Is there anything new? I'm going to start with you, Lisa.
Well, the past couple of years, as you noticed, with the COVID pandemic, has presented challenges not just to those seeking opportunities, but those also recruiting. Starting quickly with the point of view from recruiters, they receive hundreds of CVs. And then from the point of view of the applicant, because of the receiving of hundreds of CVs for certain roles, they don't actually receive constructive feedback when they are not successful in their roles. So then they don't know what they need to do differently next time to work on. So that is one of the issues that's coming through. And because there are so many different organizations offering help, CV writing, interview skills, again, they just don't know where to go. That's because of the offering, which one's actually going to help me? Which skill do I actually need to hone in on? Is it actually that part, or is it actually on my interviewing skills? So, so those are some of the issues that are coming forward, and obviously coming to a coach can actually help you with those. Other challenges are that roles are being earmarked. So because jobs are being earmarked for people, which we're talking about the hidden job market, they are being advertised, but actually they've been earmarked for people already. So they are not actually being successful in those. And again, because of the pandemic, roles are being ring fenced for those who are at risk. So you may have the skill set and the stuff to get there, but because those roles have been ring fenced, obviously they have priority over you who has actually got the skill set to do the role as well.
I think that's such an important point, because sometimes you don't get a role and you think, what did I do wrong? And sometimes you did absolutely nothing wrong. The job, was just, as you said, ring fenced or earmarked for someone else. So I think that can be just helpful to reflect on. And thank you for giving us the other dimension as well. It's not just a challenge for those who want roles, it can be a challenge for recruiters as well. So yeah, thank you. And Jane, what are your thoughts on the challenges that you've noticed in your clients?
Well, I've certainly noticed that when people come to me, they haven't really narrowed down their job search. They've got a sort of a scattergun sort of approach, and they're going to what's being advertised. They're looking at the job listings, and they're not necessarily looking beyond what is being advertised, really the unadvertised job. They're not sort of connecting with people. They're not having conversations. So I do find that that is something, and as a coach, it's about helping them to look beyond the advertised roles into that hidden job market. And I think the other thing that I experience with people is that once they've been involved in job searching and they haven't got a good strategy, they start to get very disheartened. I mean, they might start off with lots of energy because obviously, either they've got the pressure of needing to change jobs quickly if they're being made redundant, or they're looking for, for a new opening. And actually, it's also about managing your emotions. And it's a bit like what you were saying just then. If you get rejected, it might not necessarily be because of what you've done in terms of how you presented yourself. I mean, there are lots of reasons why it could be to do with your performance as well. But you have to manage those rejections, and I think that's really important. I do find that I do a lot of work with my clients on how they manage their emotions during a challenging time finding a new job. And I think the other significant issue that I get with people is that they have been in role for years, or they've found themselves going up inside an organisation without necessarily having to interview, maybe just having those conversations that we're talking about. And as a result, when they then find themselves having to look for jobs for the first time and interview, that is something that they need the support on, because they don't have the knowledge. Sometimes they don't have the knowledge of how the job market works these days. So I think that's some of the challenges I think that I found with clients.
So Jane, would you say that someone who's been with a company a long time should maybe just go for interviews every couple of years? Would you advise that kind of thing?
I think it could be a good strategy. I think you really have to think about what your sort of long-term aims are, and it can be helpful to have that interview practice, but it might be that you need to be quite focused on where you go. So if you just go for any job just to get that interview experience, then it's probably not going to serve you that well. But if you're being strategic, and actually this is a job that if you got it, you'd be happy, then yes, go out there and get that interview experience.
Yes, I hear what you're saying, because it's quite a lot of effort to go for a role, isn't it? And and that actually, if you're just doing it for the experience, you probably wouldn't get the job anyway, because you're not really, you don't really want it, and that probably will come through. So yeah, thanks so much. And Joseph, what do you think? What sort of challenges have you noticed in your clients in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think many times people want to leave jobs, or as they say, leave managers, and they want to go somewhere else. And so they're looking for work, but not looking at themselves first to say, who am I? What jobs will I be happy doing? What jobs do I aspire to do? Where am I going? So paying attention to oneself first. When that urge comes to look outside, slow it and look at oneself. And many people don't do that. They start looking. So you, as Jane said, have a scattergun approach, and you're looking for anything. But actually, when you think of what confidence looks like, if you are at an interview, it is often focus and how someone shows up. Now, if you know who you are and why you really want that job, then you can go ahead and look for exactly what you want. You can target companies or sectors that suit you. So that's one thing. The other thing Jane touched on is about looking at, you've been in a job for a long time and you don't have the confidence to move on. So I come across people who are unhappy where they are. And I always say, look, if you are beginning to be unhappy with what you're doing, that is the time to start looking. Because I've interviewed people who do not like their employers, and they come across as negative, which, even though it's not at me, the interviewer, but that's what it comes across. So before you get to that stage, consider yourself, consider your circumstances, and move, so you don't come across as negative and as desperate.
Yeah, great points. I think I just add from also my experience, there's something about knowing yourself. Changing your role now will most likely mean that your induction, everything about the role is going to be online, and how you'll find that whole process. And I think for some people, this job search approach, and then even starting a new role in this new normal is so different to what they've experienced before, that they have to consider how they'll feel about that. Because definitely people who have started new roles during the pandemic have found it really hard to get a feel for culture, learn about organizations and feel part of it. So I think taking that consideration of the current context is quite important as well in this job search. And I think sometimes that's something that people haven't quite thought about and haven't quite grasped, and then find it really difficult when they do make a move. So yeah, really great points from everyone. So my second question to you is, what have been the keys to success for your clients to secure roles? And I'm particularly looking at the non-traditional, non-linear approaches. I think we know about a lot of the approaches that exist, but we're today trying to focus on that hidden job market. And I'm going to go back to you, Joseph.
So I was looking at it, and in the UK, more than 80% of jobs are in the private sector. Now, there isn't a legal requirement to advertise jobs. So that means that people will, private sector companies who want to do well, because that's what they're there for, they want to make profits, they want to grow, they will find ways of filling roles because there's no legal requirement to advertise. They will fill roles. So how do you get to find out about roles? Relationships. I think building relationships is crucial. And I'm not saying build networking only when you go outside, but actually the people close to you, your close friends, your family, do they know what you are good at, what you are excellent at? Do they know what you really want to do, long-term or short-term, so that if your name opportunity comes up, they can recommend you with confidence, or they can suggest that to you that, look, this is what I heard. So relationships without intent, I think with employers, without intending to discriminate, will do what is best for them. And so building relationships and letting the people, because we never know who other people know. We never know where they will be in conversation. So building relationships, I think, is really important. So having a conversation with people around you, and then when you go to an event, having real conversations with people you are drawn to, and exchanging information, being open to share as well as to receive information from them.
Fantastic, thank you. That's great tips. Relationships being at the heart from your perspective. And Lisa?
Yeah, very similar. For me, it's the networking, sponsorship, volunteering, and timing. That old saying of being in the right place at the right time falls true here, I find. As so many people have said in their career journey, that it was, just being in the right place at the right time. And by having that networking, sponsorship and volunteering opportunities, it presents more opportunities for you to be at the right time. And as you've alluded to, people then know your strengths, what you're good at, what you want to do, and those opportunities come to you, which you may not have been exposed to before. And also you may not have thought of before, especially in the volunteering roles. You may not have thought of doing a particular role, and then actually by doing it, being around it or seeing someone perform that role, then open up an opportunity for you to think, actually, I might want to explore that further. That's something that I'd be good at and I'd enjoy doing. So I think with those sort of things, and obviously showing good work commitment and ethics, it helps put you in that place of securing and remaining in a role and progressing in a new role.
Thank you so much. I just want to dig a little bit deeper into what you've said. So, for example, you talked about volunteering. Something like being a trustee of a charity is a voluntary role, but that introduces you to a great network of people, or being in a PTA, or a governor in a school, for example. Those are great networking and voluntary opportunities, aren't they? And tell us
definitely
more what you mean about sponsorship. I know what I understand to be sponsorship, but just in case people don't know what that means.
Yeah, sponsorship, having someone that you can trust, that you can open up to, that you tell your intentions, where you want to go, and they're actually supporting you in that journey physically and in every sort of way in terms of being there for you, and actually then giving you the skill sets that you need in terms of opportunities and introducing you to others. So when those opportunities do come up, they'll say, well, actually, I've spoken to Fiona, since her name's on this a lot, and Fiona's really good at this and actually wants to progress in that. She's not quite there yet, but I think she'll be great at the role. She's given the opportunity and the right support put in place. And it's those sort of things that don't happen for many people, because they don't actually try and get a sponsor. The biggest thing to do is try and get a sponsor, someone that you would like to help you progress in your career, or find, and people love doing it. People love helping other people. That's why we become coaches as well. We just love helping other people, and especially those that have made it. They're more open to helping others achieve what they have, and even more.
Fantastic. Yeah. So if you're in an organization, which I think 60% of you said you want to rise in your own organization, is someone more senior than your line manager. So it could be your manager's manager, or even their their manager, who, you know, advocates for you, who opens their network for you, who tells you about those stretch opportunities that could come your way. So seeking out and developing that relationship with someone, going back to relationships, as Joseph said, would be really fantastic. But your sponsor could be outside of your organization. I think it could be an old manager, for example, or someone that you worked with is now risen up the ranks in another organization as well. So think about who's around you, could have these kinds of conversations with, who know you well, and can advocate for you. It's a really great message, Lisa. Thank you. And Jane.
Yeah, well, I really want to affirm all the points that you've said, really. You know, it's all about connections and reconnecting, you know, and I know clients that have reconnected with old bosses, with old colleagues, and they found jobs that way. And that's because, you know, companies like to recruit people that they know or that have been validated or referred to them by somebody, because they're a known quantity. And I think that's really important. And you know, Joseph said about friends and family. I think there was a job seekers national survey back done in 2019 that said 50% found jobs through friends. So important to, you know, connect or reconnect with people, and don't discount anyone. You don't know who they know. You know, so always be, you know, having those conversations. And again, what Joseph was saying about making sure that they know what you have to offer. You know what you have to offer. That's really important as well. I mean, I think another kind of key to success is thinking about your personal brand. How do you present yourself? It's both online and offline. When you're having those conversations, when you're posting on LinkedIn or your social media, what are the messages that you are giving out there, and what does that say about your skills and your strengths? So I think being very aware of your personal brand is really important. I suppose one sort of final point to sort of say in this area is just that I guess the downside of the hidden job market is that people will get roles through connections, and that can be a problem, because that sometimes means that you know, companies hire people in their own image. You know, people are similar to them, and therefore so you get a lack of diversity, and some minoritized people, you know, people of color or women, may not be getting those roles. And I think that is, I guess, the other side of the job market. But I guess it's something that organizations need to look at, you know, to maybe prevent that bias. So I just think that that's another thing that we need to be considering, which is why it's really important that when we're working with minoritized people, that we help them with the strategy so that they know the game, they know how to get to these jobs as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just to tag on to what Jane said. I mean, statistics is showing up more than 70% of jobs that are filled are never advertised. So if there's that many, getting your way into it now, like Jane also said, the organizations are probably depriving themselves of the breadth and the diversity of their workforce, but that is the reality, which is the hidden job market. It's not there. Also, something Lisa said about going into organizations, if you're volunteering, it's many times the way you show up that gives people a taster. I have a story of someone who, after a work party, helped a cleaner to clean up. The three of them helped the cleaner to clean up, because when they could have gone home. What they did not know is that the cleaner had a direct line to the person in charge of the organization, and that got two of them promotions in the organization. So just by being who you are, showing off really who you are, and being human.
Fantastic. Yeah, really lovely points. And I definitely, through personal brand, have attracted opportunities In fact, someone asked me what I thought to have what I thought was just an interview about my thoughts, a market research type question interview recently. And then I found out I was being interviewed for a potential role they wanted to talk to me about. And so sometimes you don't know what's coming, but they had watched what I'd been doing. They had been looking at my brand and decided that I might be a right fit for them. So it's about being really open, and it's about sharing what's important to you. And sometimes it's about being really obvious as well. I remember when I first wrote my book, I put some messages on social media saying, I really want to talk about this. Who wants to invite me to speak in their organization? So sometimes it's about saying, I'm really interested in this and I'm really open to opportunities around this. And LinkedIn, I think, gives you an opportunity to say open to opportunities now. So I think sometimes we have to be more obvious than we might want to, might naturally be, to signpost people to what we have to offer and the fact that we are available. So the last question that I'm going to ask for now, so do feel free to start typing your questions in the chat. What are your top tips on how you can be creative in your job search and tap into roles that might not be advertised in newspapers online? And I'm going to start with you, Jane.
Right, well, I'm just going to pick up on that point, Jenny, that you made about LinkedIn. Okay, so it's really a valuable tool. And I would say anybody who's job searching should have their profile ready, job ready on LinkedIn. And I mean, according to LinkedIn themselves, 94% of recruiters search for LinkedIn for candidates. So we know it's being used. And, you know, make sure it's recruiter friendly, your profile, professional photo, your headline, your keywords. Really think about what it is, again, back to what we said before. What are you offering? How would people know from your profile what your key strengths are and what you could contribute to a company? And then get more active. I mean, you know, working in the hidden job market is all about being proactive rather than reactive. So find the sectors, you know, what was being said before, find the people in the sectors that you're interested in, and the organizations, and start liking their posts, start making comments. And also there are groups on LinkedIn as well. Join the most relevant group or several groups. And again, start making those kind of informed comments, you know, make sensible and wise comments that just show. And if if you're not sure what to say, then just, you know, affirm what somebody else has said. Just show that you are taking an interest and that you have something to offer to that particular sector. You know, you're putting yourself out there. And I think the other top tip that I would give would be about insight conversations. And I think we've been talking about them anyway in some ways, because we've been talking about having conversations with people. But an insight or an informational interview is a particular strategy where you approach somebody in a sector or an organization that you're particularly interested in. And the key is you do not ask them for a job. That's very important. All right. That's not the etiquette that you need to use. But you just say, you know, I wonder if you could spend 15 to 20 minutes of your time. I'm really interested in pursuing this particular career or getting into this particular sector. And I wonder if you'd be willing to give me, you know, some of your time for some information. And so you have to be proactive again. You have to be searching for the right people to connect with and do this. But and it might not be that in that interview an opportunity comes up, but it could. Somebody might say, oh, well, actually, you know, we're hiring, or have you spoken to so and so because they're hiring in that organization. So you know, do your research for those informational interviews. Do go in with some really good key questions. Don't waste the time, because it's going to be short. So make sure that you've researched the company, you've researched the sector, and you've got some really good questions to ask. And people generally, as you know, Lisa was saying, people like helping other people. So often they'll be quite happy. And if you can come out of that interview with more knowledge about the sector, more information about the language to use, maybe in interviews, and maybe even another person to connect with, you know, it's really good, worthwhile doing. And you may have to do more than one. Of course, you might have to do more than one to get to that job, but it will. I believe those informational interviews have been proven to pay dividends, I think, in the end. I think that's those two things, LinkedIn and informational interviews, are two of my sort of top strategies.
Yeah, and I love that idea of at the end of maybe an informational interview saying, who else do you think I should speak to? Who else can you introduce me to?
Absolutely.
And that warm connection that you get through being introduced. And when we spoke previously, you mentioned as well, maybe speculative job applications.
Yes, absolutely. So speculative job application is where you apply. You've got, again, done your homework, done your research, and you know that a particular organisation would be a good fit to you. And so you actually apply to them directly. You, again, homework, find out who is the hiring manager, who is likely to be able to be the decision maker for a particular job. And you write to them an email where you express why you're interested in the organisation, why you think you have something to offer to that organisation, and you would attach your CV as well. And this is another way of finding jobs that haven't necessarily been advertised, but might be something that a hiring manager is considering, or else, you know, they just see someone applying like that and think, wow, that's talent, because good managers are always looking for talented people. So if you can express that in a speculative application and CV, then that's where you get doors opening for you.
And just on the recruiting side, as someone who has recruited people, two of the people who work for me, I found via LinkedIn, just to say that, you know, that's where I searched and I found them there, and they were connections of connections. So I felt like there was some connection already that I could make sure that they were good at what they did before I even had the conversation. So yeah, well, it really does work. Sorry, Jane.
Absolutely. Without interrupting, I absolutely. And one of the jobs that I got to become a university careers consultant, I got through an informational interview. I got in touch with the head of careers at my local university, and I said, "Oh, can I come and talk to you about, you know, doing careers in HE?" And that led to, in the end, that led to a job interview and a role that I got. So, you know, informational interviews work as well.
Great. And I think that's good to hear that we're practicing what we preach. We're not just making this stuff up. It really does work, and for all of us. So Joseph, what about you? What are your top tips to tap into this hidden job market and be creative in your job search approach?
Yeah, it's what you and Jane have said. I guess a slightly different angle within that, which is, I've always said to people that if you know the job, if you can think far in the future and know what job you want to be, or where you want to be in your career, then start with that and look at who is on there already. And if you can identify a few people on LinkedIn who are there, perhaps you identify 3 companies and look at the people who are in those jobs that you would eventually want to do. Now, identify those 3 companies, look at the people there and look at their career path. What did they do before? That may give you a clue as to where to start. And then you research that, you begin to make connections with that. And I think curiosity, especially when it comes to having conversations with people, being curious about what people are doing. I say to people, ask the question, and I do it as well, what's your typical day like? So if I want to be in someone's job and I ask them, what's your typical day like? It's 2 things it's doing. One of them is showing interest in this person, letting them know I'm interested, but also it gives me, as they respond, it gives me an idea of the kind of language they use, the kind of things that are important, so that I can make a choice whether this is a job I want. But if it is a job I want, or an organization I want to work for, I now have an idea of what's important to them in order to take forward if I'm offered a job, or have an interview, or make an application form, writing a personal statement, for example.
Wonderful. Yeah, really great. And I love the very practical, pragmatic approach of what to do here, which is what we need. Sometimes we just need to say, I need to bite the bullet. I'm going to find these 3 companies and I'm going to approach them, do that first, see where that takes me. So thank you very much. And Lisa.
Sorry, so mine is see the gap, see the need and propose a solution. Whether you're in the organisation already and you want to progress within there, see what are the gaps, what is the need that would help the organisation progress even further, and then propose a solution. Because organisations are always looking to improve. They always want, sorry, my throat's gone. They're always looking to improve and they're always looking to grow and reach more people and expand their network as well. So if you come to them with a sound solution on how they can do that, then they're likely to listen and you're likely to be asked to manage that through, or who would you propose or who do you need to work with to get that done. So that's a good way to do that. And sometimes it's seeing the need, seeing the gap, seeing the need, and it might not be within your organisation, another organisation, or it could be that you're actually going to establish something, you're going to pioneer something, and it may not be a road that's been done before, because that's why there is a need and there is a gap. And it's again looking into that, who can I help, who's travelled along that road in a similar pathway, who can I get advice and support from to get that done.
Wonderful, absolutely. I love the idea of pitching the role, your dream role to your organization. And if you can make those connections with, as you said, the gaps or what, some pain that they're experiencing, you can definitely find opportunities there. Where there's no budget, suddenly there is a budget, if what you're planning is the right thing. I also just really want to advocate the fact that actually, we have been sold this idea of that job ladder, step, and we get to where we want to go. But it is a wiggly line. And I'm just thinking about one client I worked with who she wanted to rise up in an organization. She found that the best thing to do was to do some, actually, in the end, consulting roles in different organizations to build her skills. Then actually what she did was she started up her own thing, and then she was headhunted from her own business that she had created to have a very senior role in a startup. So it's not straightforward. We've got to be creative now, and actually the world is ever changing. So other examples are clients who have been headhunted for roles, go to roles, and then the roles change even before they've started in the organization. There's so much change. So it's whether you're willing to surf the change, whether you want to lead your own change, but be prepared for change. Don't see change, don't see change in your job title or redundancy or ends of contracts as any reflection on you. It's the market you're in, and it's about how you make the most of it. And I think if you're open to change, and for things moving all the time, but for you trusting that you know yourself well enough, as Joseph has said, that you know what your skills are really clearly, and that you're focused, as Jane was saying, and that you're open to grabbing opportunities, as Lisa was saying, then you'll be in a really great position to be able to make the most of it. So I don't see any questions here. So lucky me, I can ask another question. But if you do have any questions, do put them in the chat, because we're really happy to answer specific questions you have. So I'm curious. There is a lot of online interviews right now, and I even know there's some that you're not even talking to a person. It's a recorded message or a question. You've got to video yourself, and in a short space of time to answer those questions. What are your tips for online interviews? Who has some tips in the group?
Well, my tip would be, sorry.
You go first, Lisa, then I'll go to Joseph.
Yeah. So my tip would be prepared. So make sure your internet connection's working, that it's visible, the sound, everything like that, the software. You're not due for an update, which normally happens just before a meeting. And choose your background. Make sure that it's not too colourful and it's appropriate for the interview that you're actually having. And make sure you've got a do not disturb sign on the door if you've got people that you live with or other people that might be coming in and out of the place where you're actually doing your interview. Make sure they know not to interrupt. The second tip would be professional. Sometimes we can be relaxed, especially if we're at our home environment. Lots of people are working from home, and we're more, relaxed about everything. When you're professional this part, and this part is not so professional. I have got dressed this morning, just to let you know, but but yeah, being professional and throughout, make sure that you're on time, ready to go, and everything's ready. And just be mindful of the communication, make eye contact. It's really hard to do that while you're when you're not actually sitting with someone opposite you, but just consider speaking into and looking at the camera, looking at the people if they are there, and making that eye contact and trying to get that connection online. So those would be my my 3 top tips on that one. I'll leave some space for Joseph and Jane.
Great tips. And that actually moving your head, you know, when someone asks you a question, you know, actually moving and showing that you're looking at different people can really be helpful, even though looking directly at the camera is also a really good tip. So thank you. Joseph.
Lisa covered all the things I would have said. She did a brilliant job with that. I think in addition to that, it's also being comfortable with what you look like in that camera. Because yes, we are saying, look at the camera, and I'm looking at the green dot beside the camera, because often we look down at the screen rather than the camera. Yes, focus on doing that. But if you do catch an image of yourself, be comfortable with what you will see. Because oftentimes, if you're not comfortable, it's like hearing your voice the first time, that might get in the way of what you're saying. So be comfortable, practice. Again, you have the skills, make sure your skills are there, that your relationships are there, and then these are the finishing touches of how you actually do show up.
Wonderful. And I think, yeah, someone asked just one more question, saying, what about where there's no interaction? But I do think we've answered that question, which is be prepared, look directly at that camera, you know, practice what you want to say. And often you can re-record what you've said as well. So you get more than one opportunity, which is great, because you don't get a second opportunity when you're in a live interview. So I often say, put some Post-it notes around the screen, or, you know, to give you a bit of a prompt, or have a Word doc up so you can quickly tap back in to remind yourself of the answers. So suddenly you've got lots of questions come through. If you are changing careers and starting in a new field, how do you start out connecting with others already in that field? Are there suggested organizations that help people who want to transition into life coaching?
Well, there's a couple of questions there, isn't there?
Yeah.
In terms of getting started, well, it's what I was saying before, you know, in terms of if you're trying to transition into an area, LinkedIn is a good place to, you know, you can find the company profile, and have a look at the people who are working for that organisation, and see if you have got some connections to that person, to people who work in that organisation. So have those informational interviews, which is what I was talking about. But you can also post on chats. And in terms of organisations that you could connect with, look at the professional association related to that organisation. So if you were going into HR, it might be the CIPD. If you're going to marketing, the Chartered Institute of Marketing, CIM, and that sort of thing. You know, they organise amazing networking events online, and you know, probably going to more in person as well. So I would suggest that. And then there was one part of the question which was about life coaching, was it?
Yes, it was just if you want to go into life coaching, any suggested organisations that help people?
Well, there's a whole range of organisations that offer coaching, life coaching, but there are professional bodies. So there's the International Coaching Federation, there's the Association for Coaching, and there is the EMCC, which is European Mentoring and Coaching Consortium, or Council. Council, thank you. So I would be looking at those professional bodies first of all, because they will promote accredited courses in the first instance, and I think that is really important to do an accredited course. Also, they will have networking, they will have short courses, all different ways in which you can develop if you're thinking about going into life coaching.
That's great. I'm going to move on because we have got lots of questions suddenly come through. So I coach some young people with very limited experience looking for their first job. How would you recommend them to use LinkedIn to help them with these first steps? Who would like to respond? I'm just going to ask only one of you.
So I have spoken to, worked with people who are in universities who are making a LinkedIn profile. And oftentimes they struggle as to what to put in there. And my advice is to look at when it says, or the section that says about you, that is thinking about what it is, where are you going in, what direction are you heading? And what reason do you have for that? So if you can say that briefly, it gives you a starting point so that anybody looking there knows where you are coming from. Then, for example, if you've done work as part of a team doing an assignment, what have you learned about yourself and about other people? That gives you a clue as to the kind of things you can put into how you are with teamwork. So you can use your profile to highlight the few things that you've done, voluntary things that you've done, but also your other activities, what you've learned. So for example, if you've been part of a basketball team, and you've led the team, those are leadership skills. You've got to start somewhere. And so therefore, I think, Jen, something you were saying earlier on, be positive about it. Be positive about this thing you want to do, and that will open up your mind to using what you already have.
Thank you. That's great. Some really great tips there. Yeah, and definitely maybe make sure you share your location, what you're willing to do, if you're flexible, all of those things people are interested in. So we have a question here. I'm a stay-at-home mum and want to go back to work, but to change my previous job and feel overwhelmed with what to do. Just a couple of quick tips for this person?
I'll take that one. Yeah, it can be overwhelming. I think just start with the basic. Just start with, what is it that I want to do? If you don't want to go back to what you did before, then just think, what are the things that I enjoy doing? What are those skill sets? And then think about, what is the type of work that I'd like to do in regards to how many hours you want to work, where you want to work, the location, how far you're prepared to travel, all that sort of thing. To consider all those things, and then you can then ring fence, sort of like make a map of the types of organisations that work in those areas, and would you like to work for those companies, and what could you offer those companies, and start from there. So yeah, make it work for you. If you're a stay-at-home mum and you want to go in part-time, full-time, whatever you want to do, how far do you want to travel? Where do you want to area working? What organisations offer those sort of roles?
Yeah, and I put it out there. I think people often say, when I've coached people who have been stay-at-home mums before, they suddenly think that nobody would want them, that no one will be flexible, that there aren't jobs like that out there for them. But put it out there. As an old boss said to me, share your vision and people will conspire to make it happen. So tell people what you want, and the possibilities will be there. Last question: how do you make contacts with hard to reach companies who often nowadays do not display contacts directly on their website? So it's really hard to find them. They might be through a paywall, for example, that you have to get through on a website, you just can't find them. So how do you do that when you haven't got any contacts? Their website doesn't make it clear how to get through to them. What do you do?
I just think, look for other presence on the web. Don't just go to LinkedIn. I mean, just look at a range. So I think it's harder. Obviously, you've got to do more homework, more researching, more Googling, but you've got to look for, where do they have a presence? I mean, how do they market to their clients, and how do they promote their services? They must be somewhere, but it's more research and looking at other forms of how they're communicating, in order to then once you find, maybe go back and find if they've advertised before. They might be the name of a hiring manager from previously. So a bit more research, I guess, and a bit more sort of trying to be quite creative, trying to find. And again, just trying to see if there's anyone that you know that knows about them. So have conversations with people, connect with people. Who do you know who is a real sort of super connector, who knows a lot of people, and that's the person maybe to go and talk to, because they might have heard of that organisation. If you can also get a super connector in that sector, then there's bound to be somebody there who knows something more about that company. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. So say if I wanted to get in touch with Coca-Cola, I couldn't find the hiring manager. I think I'd type Coca-Cola and people or connections into LinkedIn, see what came up. If there's anyone who's got any tenuous connection with Coca-Cola, or anyone who I could message directly who works in Coca-Cola, and just maybe explain my problem. I'm trying to get through to HR. Do you know how I might go about that? They might have some inside knowledge. You might have to get some rejection. Not everyone will respond to you, but it's worth a try. So we're coming to the end. Someone asked a question, what about job searching when you've been fired or been made redundant? We actually did a whole webinar on that. So if you just Google that and my name, you will find a whole webinar that we did on that topic. So we won't answer that question today, but we do have that. And if you can't find it, just email us after this session and we'll send you the recording. Thanks for your amazing questions. The person who was talking about backgrounds, please, just ask someone. If you don't know how to change your background, Google it or ask someone. It's easily done. We don't need to see people's underwear in the background. Absolutely not. And the recording to this session will be shared. So I have one final question for our amazing coaches. What's the big coaching question that anyone who wants to tap into the hidden job market should ask themselves? First, over to you, Joseph. What's that big coaching question they should ask?
I think, unsurprisingly, I'd ask, who are you and who do you want to be in your next job?
Love that. Who do you want to be?
Because when you ask that question, the where and the how will show up.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Lisa?
Mine is, what are you prepared to commit to? Because success, securing roles, establishing roles all require commitment. Your time, your resources, your effort. What are you prepared to start doing and what are you prepared to stop doing?
Lovely, thank you. And Jane?
Okay, what value will I bring to an organisation and who do I need to be talking to in order to secure my next job?
Great, 3 perfect questions to really get you on that journey to moving forward. I want to say a huge thank you for attending today. Big thank you to Jane, to Joseph, and to Lisa. You can find more about them in the Diverse Coaching Directory, if I could say it, the Diverse Coaching Directory. You can contact them directly through the directory. They are all amazing coaches, will definitely help you on your job search, through your career move, and also just navigating work, life, and career. So do connect with that directory, do connect with them. I personally advocate each and every one of them. And do find out more about the directory. It might be something that can help your organization. My website is also jennygarrett.global. Do feel free to connect with me, particularly if you're an organization who wants to advance the careers of those who are women or from ethnically diverse backgrounds, or if you want to help your organization be more inclusive and support all of your leaders to be able to do so. We have a webinar every single month, so do go back to Eventbrite, do subscribe. We look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks so much. Huge thanks again to Joseph, Jane, Lisa, and a massive thanks to Sonetta for supporting the chat, for making sure that we're managed really well. Take care, everyone, and we really look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Bye.